evening. We will now call the council meeting. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Rowe.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Miller.
Present.
Councilman Racy.
Here.
Councilman Porter.
Here.
Councilman Gabriel.
Present.
Councilman Webster.
Here.
Councilman Dowd.
Here.
Right. You do have a quorum with all 7 members present. The first item is a moment of silence for retired Police Lieutenant Donald Kendrick, who passed away this week. Thank you. Item 1 is to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve. Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Porter, supported by Councilman Webster. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 2 are City Council minutes. Item 2A are the special meeting minutes of July 10th.
Move approval. Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Webster, supported by Councilman Porter. Any corrections? Deletions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Item 3 are communications and reports. Item 3A is the June 30th, 2018 Revenue and Expenditure Report.
Wish of council, receive and file. Any questions? Okay. All in favor of receive and filing?
We don't need a motion.
We don't need a motion, okay.
Thank you. Item 3B is a flyer from the Wayne Historical Museum concerning an exhibit of St. Mary's Catholic Church and School. And tonight, Nicole Conklin from the Historical Society, she's there on the left, is going to address the council about this flyer and a few other things at the museum.
Sorry. Mayor Rowe and members of the council, my name is Nicole Conklin and I am the vice president of this Wayne Historical Society. And on behalf of the society, I'd like to first thank the downtown committee for their hard work during downtown days. At the vendor show, we had at least 400 people come through to the show and visit the museum. And also the Nankin Transit for their bus service that was stopped right in front of our museum, and there were many mothers and children waiting there, and I know they appreciated it. So the Wayne Historical Society promotes, collects, and preserves the history of the city of Wayne, and because of the love we have for our past, we gladly promote Wayne today through our new merchandise that can be purchased at the museum store or concerts at the park coming Wednesdays this summer. And some of the new things that they wanted me to show the council were the new cups. It says it's great to live in Wayne with our coordinates. And then we have new bumper stickers, and then last year at the concert we actually sold out. But this is our new logo. And then we're trying these wooden signs, and this got a good response at vendor days, and people are asking for new designs. So that's something we're going to try. And we're thinking of new t-shirts, which might be something like this, and baseball caps to promote Wayne. And then I'd like to address the upcoming exhibit. It'll be a temporary exhibit that Tyler Mull, the museum director, and I are working on. And as you know, after 94 years, the school has closed. After 94 years of teaching the children of Wayne and surrounding communities, we would like to, at our exhibit, showcase the history of St. Mary's Church and School. It will tell of its humble beginnings above a store to the opening of St. Mary's School in 1924 to the present day. We have already collected flooring in a window from the very first church of 1895. We found lockers from the high school. We finished those. We found old jerseys. We have a lot of trophies from the 1960s when they were very popular with their sports program. And so we are still looking and asking for memorabilia from the church and the school. I've had a priest send me money, which I don't know how he heard of us, but to donate to the cost. I had someone from Texas contact me and sent me things that were their parents. So the word is getting out, but we still really need help with the memorabilia and to cover the cost of the exhibit boards. So if you've been to the museum, you've seen what Tyler's done to make those boards. Each board is $70. So as of right now, we have $490 raised. We'd like to hit $800 just to give it a more polished look, because it will be up between 3 to 6 months or until Tyler decides we have a new one coming in. So you can contact the museum Wednesdays and Thursdays by calling or going in to talking to Tyler or myself, or talk to me today after the meeting.
Okay.
And that's, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is item 3C. This is a flyer from Sue F. McCormick, Chief Executive Officer of the Great Lakes Water Authority, concerning the Great Lakes Water Authority fiscal year 2019 wholesale water schedule of charges.
Could the city manager just give a little brief overview of what's stated in here for the public?
Sure. No problem.
Not a problem. Unfortunately, this is something that we don't look forward to, obviously, but water rates do go up. There's a lot of infrastructure improvements and things like that that are taken into account when our water rates are, studied by the GLWA. And the GLWA is the Great Lakes Water Authority, of which we're a part of, this group. So basically what it says is the bullet points that are pointed out on here are increasing the water revenue requirement budget by 1.0% from the prior year. The first year phase-in of the units of service study impacts related to GLWA's non-master metered customers. The loss of Genesee County Drain Commission as a full-service water customer. So basically any time that we lose customers, your rates go up, and that's taken into consideration. Anytime that other communities may not pay, certainly that doesn't help. Or if there are major infrastructure issues, that also is brought to basically your build for that. There's a lot of different things, as Mike is shaking his head can agree. I know that the city gets a lot of heat about water bills going up, but this is a lot has to do with the GLWA and what their studies find. And the last thing is approximately 1/3 of the water model contracts reopened, resulting in an overall reduction in charges to customers and an increase to other customers from the resulting reallocation of costs. So basically it says the result is water charges for wholesale customers will increase by an average of 1.7% rather than the this is good news, but rather than the 2.7% originally proposed at a public hearing in February of 18. So basically, I have to say that the GLWA, one thing they're very good about is communicating with us. We do get a lot of letters, communications, emails, everything from this organization. So we can give it to Mike, Engineering, DPW, and Plant Moran and our finance department so that they can start assessing as well and figure out where we're going to be so that we can also pass that information on to you so you can be prepared as well. Does that help, Mayor?
Okay. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have something. I was just wondering, I noted that the loss of Genesee County Drain Commission, and through the little bit of research I did, I noticed different groups. Would we be able to join with other cities and maybe get a lower rate through a, whatever group we wanted to do? Whatever we wanted to call it, let's say Garden City, Westland, and us. I don't have any idea. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Sure.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, what used to be DWSD, now Great Lakes Water Authority, isn't interested in dealing with a group of us. They deal with each of us individually, as they have in the past. What some communities have done, what we can consider doing in the future to help with our water rates is build some type of water storage tank that will help offset the peaking factor. Right now that's not been a need for us because of the way the meter is situated in the pump station. We are not a normal community where our formula is based on peak use. but that's coming soon. When this project happens, it's beginning in March of 2019, where they're going to finish the loop extended from down Glenwood Road through the park there, past Vinoy out to Merriman, and down Merriman back to Michigan Avenue. And they finish that pump work probably in, I'm not sure, they're not sure they can get that done in 2019. It might go into 2020. At the completion of that, we will be on that peak formula like most other communities. And so at that time, it would be good for us to consider having some kind of water storage unit. So we are pumping water during off hours to offset our peak number. Communities are doing that around us right now to try and help control that cost. There is a storage unit on the southeast corner of Merriman and Michigan Avenue that the counties had. We've been talking to them whenever we have the opportunity about maybe being able to work some kind of deal out with them for that station or that storage area. I'm not sure they're ready for that yet, but we are thinking about how to keep the rates down. In most communities right now, in an effort to do that, are building these storage units. So if we were wanting to work toward that, we could start thinking about that a little bit.
Mayor Rowe? Yes.
Okay. You finished?
And I realize that the peak peak usage and the storage unit are the key items in that. But is there anything else that, you know, right off the top, and I don't expect any elaborate answer or anything, just is there anything else that we can do? You know, because
I think as we've discussed this, Ed Queen and I have discussed this with other municipalities when we sit in on these meetings. We're often in small round table groups with other communities, and it seems like as we've all been trying to figure out how to keep these rates under control, that the storage has been the one that everybody keeps coming back to. We'll keep our ears peeled for any other alternatives, but right now that's where we're at.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Mayor, hypothetical question. Discussing with those communities that are developing these storage units for water, creating some sort of agreement with them. Is that possible?
I think they're pretty focused on taking advantage of all the storage that they can to reduce their peak number as much as possible. Anything that they would give to us would be a loss to them, trying to drive that peak number down. So perhaps if Westland wanted to look at building a storage unit with us, we could consider that, or some kind of storage tank.
Reserve.
Yes. Well, you know, that's, as we think moving forward, maybe we need to be thinking about some of those opportunities. But currently, any one that's just been built or under construction, I know they're counting on every bit of that store volume for their formula to come down.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I got a question.
Yes.
Mike, do you know when the last time we did our, and I'm not sure the terminology, but the guesstimation of where we try to figure out what our rate's going to be? Where they come in that weekend, the week to look at our rate, and they look at it?
That
you know what I'm talking about?
If I understand what you're talking about, that would be like the Plant Moran study that we have for like a 5-year outlook. And maybe a year and a half ago, I'm asking the city manager for some help over here, but my memory.
That's correct. As you recall, Plant Moran did a water study along with finance to talk about the where we're going to go. But Brian has really been a stickler on making sure that we're not just letting this go for 5 years, that we are constantly looking at it year by year to make sure that we're falling in line. The good thing about having Plant Moran is that they can also see what's going on around the region as well, see what the water usage is, and they're very good about figuring out those percentages based on, you know, what's going on around us too. So we'll keep those reports, Councilman, active, and we'll keep those conversations going so that we're ahead and we can make sure that you and the residents understand what to expect moving forward as close as we can estimate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mike.
The next item is item 3D. This is discussion regarding amending section 5.14 of the city charter regarding anti-nepotism.
Councilman Webster or Councilman Racy?
I'll go ahead and start. As I'm sure some of you are aware, there's kind of a situation that caused us to look at this that had to do with, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about this at all, Tom. Councilman Porter had a grandson that was,
He still has them.
well, either way, he has a grandson that is currently employed with Wayne PD, but due to the way the nepotism policy is currently stated, unfortunately he cannot remain with the department. And I think this is just one of many things that we need to look at in terms of the current policy to maybe amend and not have it as broad, so we don't kind of shoot ourselves in the foot. We're struggling to find people to fill positions, and you know, I personally spoke with the chief, and you know, he was very distraught by the fact that he's going to lose a good person over this policy. So I just think it's something we can sit up here and talk about, and maybe possibly look into changing and look into other parts of the charter to change that are outdated and don't make any sense for us anymore.
Anyone else?
Mayor, well,
Yes.
my first question would be to the attorney, asking that the legality of this council of changing that policy, or is that something that would have to go in front of the voters in doing so?
So council would have the ability to put any sort of change on the ballot on their own, but it would have to be voted on by the voters.
Okay.
And then
Ballot language itself has to be reviewed by any proposed, not ballot language, but charter language. That any proposed changes to your charter has to be approved, as we know from prior instances, by the Attorney General's office. There's a specific division of the Attorney General's office that has to approve proposed changes to charter language. So that's really the first step, is to decide what the proposed language is going to be, present it to the Attorney General's office for review, and then place it on the ballot.
Mayor, so to be clear, then we do not have the ability of creating any language change in that policy?
Not by a vote of council. A resolution cannot change charter.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
So, to the city attorney, so what is the timeline from when we could propose some language and send it to the Attorney General? I mean, what's that look like for us?
April, if I recall correctly off the top of my head, from when the two charter revisions that I'm most familiar with are our Netter Amendment, and then when we had to change pursuant to the wards, and the wards were created. But it's past the point in order to have it on the ballot for like a fall election of November 18. So moving forward, we eliminated odd year elections. So I believe it would be then the fall of 2020 is the next time that we would have an election where we could meet the deadline in order to have that issue placed on the ballot.
And since this was going on the agenda, I did print out some materials and had the city clerk print them, and it was distributed to the city council members before the meeting, so they do have this to look at, and it explains to them some of the things that are necessary and timelines and such, and there is information available out there. It does suggest that you hire an outside consultant or an outside attorney firm to go through this with you, because it does have to go to the Attorney General and be approved at that level. As most of you know, we've had two major changes to the charter, the Netter Amendment and then the wards, and unfortunately, because the administrations at those times did not really care for those proposals, they really didn't look at it, and it was citizens' ballot proposals to do this, and therefore there are a lot of areas in the charter that were just overlooked and not considered to be reviewed and updated when the initial amendment was put forth. So it's caused some problems in respect with the Netter Amendment. It just states that the mayor is elected every 2 years, but it doesn't state anything about how to fill that vacancy, so we fall back to the original charter, which has always caused some questions and concerns. So there's lots of ways when you're doing charter amendments that you need to be cognizant of the fact that it's just not that one area, one section, it snowballs into other sections of the charter, and you have to be cognizant of that fact. So that's one of the reasons they request that you have some legal counsel. One of the other things is it's an elected board, and usually, from what I read, it's an 18-month to 2-year process from when that board is elected. And so,
if I can clarify, yeah. Mayor, I'm going to look back at our correspondence with the state, Councilman Webster, because I don't want to, I think it's around April, but I'm going to look back at our correspondence with regard to the wards to see when the approval was provided in order to be on the ballot language. So I will provide that supplemental information to council. There's really 2 ways to go about it. So you can spot change charter, right? You can look at an individual provision like this and not like it and say, you know what, this doesn't fit our times anymore. This is old and outdated. And you can change just that provision. Or you can conduct a full, obviously, review of charter and to try to bring all of it up to date and consistent. So when we talk about it, it's imperative that we make sure we're addressing the right discussion. So my office could absolutely handle, you know, going to the charter, and we have in the past. We did with the wards, and we know how to do that. It is a larger undertaking, as we all know, even though it can be beneficial for the city to do a review of the entire charter. So 2 different things we're working with there, and I just want to be clear that I don't think it's necessary to hire outside counsel or anything like that to do. I don't even know if it would be necessary to hire outside counsel to do a full review. It depends. But to just spot change the charter, that's not necessary. No. Your city attorney can handle that. Our office can handle that. We've done it in the past. And to the extent that you can change charter and make sure that it's not inconsistent with other provisions, we try to do that. Luckily, anti-nepotism does appear to kind of fall into a bubble. It doesn't seem to play off any other provisions in charter. So if council wanted to pick a particular provision that to amend where it's not going to have those implications in other areas, I think that's probably one of the best sections of charter to do that. But either way, it is a lengthy process with getting the Attorney General approval in order for it to be approved in time to be printed on the ballot and then make the deadline for the fall election.
Mayor Rowe.
Yes.
I just want to point out and add to that because I agree, you know, there is, our charter is outdated. It needs to be reviewed. We all can agree on that, I believe. I think that we could provide a resolution with the effort of a goal, a deadline by 2020 for us to have something of that nature in place for the future of just doing a whole overview of our whole charter, you know, for the 21st century here. I mean, this gives us plenty of time to be able to meet that goal as a community. And I'm just making that suggestion out to the council as well as the community.
Well, then could I suggest that the council members take the 2 handouts that I had printed up, read them over, and then we can ask in the meantime that the city attorney provide us with an opinion of how she feels we should proceed the one way or the other, doing it section at a time or trying to do a whole revision.
Well, I think my role is just more so to outline the process either way.
Yeah.
I don't want to make a recommendation as to how council proceeds. Obviously, that's council's decision, but I think it would be helpful if you're considering a potential for full review to understand the various steps and the processes that are necessary to do a full review.
Okay.
Yes. Quick. And can we also find out, I believe Inkster did that like a year or so ago, and kind of find out what their costs for doing that? They're probably the closest ones that have done it recently.
Yeah. Yeah.
This guy gives a ballpark of what we're looking at.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Yes.
Jeff Wild, Newburgh. There's a few concerns with this approach, and the first one would be how was Tom's grandson even hired to begin with? Well, how was our hiring process allow a violation of the charter to happen? I think that's a question we should address. And we all like Tom now, and we feel for this story, but we have to be aware of if we change it because we like Tom, what happens 20 years from now, how can this be abused if we change this clause? And that's something to consider. It's nothing against you, Tom. It's just
I understand.
This is a protection of the people against a rogue government, and we don't want to see everybody's council, you know, their family is all the employees 20 years from now. So we have to tread lightly, you know, and then cost is another concern. Definitely, I agree that our charter is probably way out of date, but it seems we're bleeding money fruitlessly elsewhere, and we still need to apply some band-aids and stop creating new cuts before we go full in, you know, on the legal end of this. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes. Yes.
I'd like to address some of his concerns. First of all, the chief, and he's not here. I wish he was, because he could make sure I'm saying this right. The police department has their own anti-nepotism policy in the police department, as does the fire department. He was going by his. He did not realize that we had an overriding clause in the charter. It was a mistake. It wasn't necessarily his mistake. I don't know anybody that would have thought about it when they had an anti-nepotism clause in their policy to look somewhere else for another one. He just said, well, I'm following it, it's fine. So he hired him. That was, I agree with the money. It is a big amount of money probably to do an overall. I would, right now I'm leaning towards maybe doing a spot, possibly. This only is something that brought this whole thing to light and is bringing it all to discussion in front of council. It's not a big deal. I've already told everybody, including the chief, he's got to go. We know that, and we're good with it. We understand what happened and how it happened and everything. So it's, you know, it's all done and it's over with as far as we're concerned. It just that this just highlighted some of our problems, and this is a minor one in comparison to some of the other problems that we have in the charter, in my estimation. So I hope that answers part of your question.
Yes.
Can I say one thing too?
Yes.
That's absolutely correct. And from the administrative side, we are going to add, we're going to work with the city attorney, give you another assignment. We're going to add language in the application process so that this doesn't happen again. Unfortunately, with the lack of staffing, and we're reactive and not proactive, and we'd like to be a little bit more proactive, but this was one of those situations where we all feel terrible about it, and we're going to try to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And secondly, I just want to say with regards to the charter, it's not just things like that. We have a lot of issues with our collective bargaining agreements as well. When we come to certain aspects in the charter, they challenge the collective bargaining agreements. And sometimes what we feel is correct going by the charter is not necessarily what's correct when we have to utilize the bargaining agreements as well. And there's so many different layers of issues within that charter that are deeper than just, you know, some of the surface. I know, you know, that it gets, we've run into a lot of this. In fact, when we did our bargaining at the table in 2016 and through last year, I mean, it was constantly running into what takes precedence. Does the charter take precedence? Does the collective bargaining agreement take precedence? We have a lot of cleaning up to do on both sides. So it's more, it's into that detail and that level of detail too. So there's a lot of things that the charter just does not mesh with. So thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
That's
one other thing that he asked, or that Jeff mentioned, was if we change it, you know, how it will affect employees or things like that down the road. And the one thing that I would like to see if we tackle this is full-time employees. I think the charter speaks well to full-time employees. You're speaking about a 28-hour-a-week maximum at $11 plus an hour. This doesn't have anything to do with nepotism. My grandson wanted to get experience in the police department. He wants to be a policeman. He's going to be a policeman. There's no doubt in my mind, because he has his mind set on it. this was just to sit in and converse with officers and talk to them and, you know, and work with them day by day at 28 hours a week at $11 an hour, $300 a week. I don't think there was any nepotism. And believe me, he didn't even tell me. He had his own references. He never said anything to me. His brother told me he got hired. I didn't even know until his brother came to mow my lawn and he said, oh, Cody got hired. So I just want you to know that it was not that way, all right? That's all.
Okay, thank you.
The next item is item 4, general items for consideration. Item 4A is approval of exercising the City of Wayne's right of first refusal for the purchase of approximately 4 properties from the 2018 tax foreclosed properties from Wayne County.
Move to approve.
Support.
Move to approve.
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Miller, supported by Councilman Webster. Are there any questions or discussions?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Could we just have, I see some are highlighted and some are not. So the highlighted ones are the ones that we want to buy,
Yes.
and then the other ones not.
Yes.
Can we just get an explanation of why we don't want the other ones?
Yes.
Absolutely. Just 1 second. So each year when we get the list, Matt has more expertise in this as he knows almost every single house in the city. We look at the list and determine which houses are redevelopable, which ones can be rehabbed. This year, unfortunately, we only had 2 that were really worthy of being rehabbed. We also have 2 vacant lots. So if you look, Councilman Webster, the first 2 Michigan Avenue properties, those are businesses. And we currently do not have, I shouldn't say we don't. The two vendors that we use have taken commercial properties in the past, and they have either rehabbed them or they've sold them, but neither one of the gentlemen felt that these 2 properties were worth the investment at this time. Okay, and then we had 2 vacant parcels which we are going to be selling back to the owners. They were under the impression that their monthly payment plan they were making to Wayne County was those 2 parcels were part of it. Unfortunately, they have 3 separate parcels there, so we're going to work with them. They're going to pay the full amount back plus the fee that our developers pay, and we're going to work with Matt to get a parcel combination so this doesn't happen to them again. And then the very last parcel is kind of the same situation. If you look at the very bottom, and that's Merriman, that's a gentleman that owns a home and he has not paid the taxes on the vacant land next to him. So we really have this year only 2 homes that will be rehabbed.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you, Ms. Cohen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Item 4B is to approve a resolution for the Senior Alliance 2019 Annual Implementation Plan.
Move to approve.
Support.
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Miller and supported by Councilman Webster. Any discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 4C is to approve applying the 2018 Ford Motor Company Building Department fees to the Ford Motor Company consent judgment by the Michigan Tax Tribunal.
Move approval.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Racy, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Miller. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Did you have a question?
I did, Mayor.
Okay.
So with that, what will be our remaining balance that we still owe Ford Motor Company?
We still owe them, I believe Katie said the total was $538,000, so we're going to still owe them about $300-some thousand. Yeah.
It's coming down.
Yes, it's coming down. This is a
Good
very
thing.
good step. This is money's not going to come out of the general fund, so that's good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes,
Thank you to Mike Biden for that,
yes.
proposing that. That helps us a lot. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you for all the hard work there, too. I know it's been tough with all the plans and doing the inspections in summertime, and so thank you. Yes, you do. You do. Thank you. Next item.
Is item 4D. This is to approve an interagency agreement with Wayne County for the resurfacing of Wayne Road between Glenwood and Michigan Avenue West.
approval.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Racy, supported by Councilman Webster, was it?
Yes.
Yes.
Any questions, discussion?
I got a question.
Yes.
I got a question. Why is it the timeline so long? I mean, is it just that they want it, that they do it and hope to be done by then? We don't expect it to be so long? I think it was said till November,
Mm-hmm.
if I recall.
Yep.
Usually when they set a time frame for the project to be completed, they provide enough time for the contractor to have flexibility to get equipment in at the best times within a certain time frame. If we make that window too narrow, sometimes our costs go up. So by providing some time in there, it allows the contractor to do his best control of his expenses and give us the best price. So the county usually provides plenty of time so that that project would be completed within that time frame.
But the goal is to try to have it done before that.
Certainly, yes, certainly.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mayor Rowe?
Yes.
I just want to point out, you know, we certainly do appreciate the improvement that is occurring on this business corridor. This business corridor is certainly improving. It is embanked on both sides by high-density households. There's a lot of pedestrian. I had asked the council administration to look into some improvements that we could entail with this project. Unfortunately, they felt that it was not deemed feasible. And I hope that in the future that we will continue to pursue some of those pedestrian safety applications, you know, that we had discussed in prior meetings, some placemaking applications as well for this corridor. But I would continue to, and I appreciate the administration's effort. I know they really made a strong argument on behalf of the businesses in that corridor. I know they are very concerned about the speed, about the safety of the pedestrians and accessibility for everyone to be able to coexist safely in that corridor. So I would only ask that you would continue to keep that on the back burner in the future for this corridor, because it's really just a simple case of where sometimes the foreman is using metrics to base their opinions on a situation, but you know, sometimes the people that are at ground level understand the true challenges that exist in that vicinity. And it's just that disconnect that we have to somehow figure out how to overcome and work with the Wayne County road services on this. So I'd ask that you continue to help us pursue some of those concerns that the businesses do have in that area, and residents as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. I know that as a group of people in Michigan, we've been working toward that with this complete streets idea that started a few years ago, and it hasn't reached its full potential, I think, right? So we will try and be diligent in continuing to pursue those ideas that were brought up regarding pedestrian traffic and non-motorized traffic.
And
one other thing I would like to ask, do we have, is it on our dashboard about addressing some of those residential streets? I know they are very horrifically. Do we have something, you know, down the pipeline of being able to do some resurfacing on some of those streets?
We do have a road assessment plan that we try and keep updated. We drive the streets every 5 years, and we look at each block, and we have an understanding of where our higher needs are, mm-hmm. and where they're not. We have we have one mill that goes towards the roads, mm-hmm. and that's being used partly to help take care of the cost of the resurfacing project here, mm-hmm.
partly
to help with covering some costs related to our bridges that we're having to hire engineers to do put together plans for. So our 1 mil is being used, and we're trying to do preventative maintenance too. You'll see some of that coming up. So we're trying to leverage that mill the best we can right now. So that doesn't afford us an opportunity to do any rehabilitation projects of great significance at this point. But we do continue to monitor our street system so that we're always aware of where our biggest challenges are, and when we have opportunity for funds or you know, any money that we can get from anywhere to work on the roads, we're going to be there fixing them the very best we can. And we're trying to be smart about how we use the money that we're getting to leverage that. We get 80% of the money for those bridge rehabs, the bridge rehab we're going to do on Hicks Road, for example, in 2020. The 80% of the construction cost. So, and 90% of the resurfacing project here on Wayne Road is being covered by the state and the county. So our monies are being used for bigger projects, in part at least substantially, to help us take advantage of some of the other money that's coming in from outside to help us out.
It's clear that you have it prioritized. I appreciate the explanation.
Thank you.
And one other thing, I mean, the city manager and the building department, I've even had an opportunity to sit with the director and assistant director at a function about 6 months ago and asked them to look into Wayne Road and striping and crosswalks. And again, they came back and said the same thing. You know, there's not enough pedestrian traffic, they say, and it is a street to move people from point A to point B, and that's their main goal, is to move people through. And so until Wayne County changes their whole perception of what traffic patterns are supposed to be, you're going to see this always being refused. So we just have to be careful. But I would just like to stress, please, everybody, watch when you're driving. I don't know if anybody else has had this happen to them, but within the last month, I have had drivers pass me in the center lane. As I'm in the left through lane, because I'm going to be turning on my street, and I've had people pass me in that center turn lane. So yeah, almost T-boned me, because I'm getting in that lane to turn on Elm Street, and he's passing me.
And I'll remind everybody, as the prosecutor at the court, that's now a construction zone, which means fines are doubled. So be cognizant of that.
That's a good idea.
And hopefully there's somebody in that event that can write a ticket, because that's a huge safety concern.
Yes.
But now that it is a construction zone, we have elevated fines with regard to civil infractions in construction zones.
Thank you.
Mayor, I got something for Mike too. I noticed this, I think it was today or it was yesterday when they were working out there. The guy had his truck like parked here, and he was in front of his truck doing work, and there's nothing protecting him over here. I just thought that was very inappropriate, the way that they were doing it, and that's the county doing that, just to make them aware that that's very dangerous.
If you see anything like that occurring, and you can call engineering first.
Okay.
DPW maybe second, and then if not, police.
Okay.
We do not want anybody killed on one of our roads.
Well, and that's what I was afraid of when I passed by it. I was very concerned the way that they were operating.
We'll keep an eye out for that.
Okay.
Yeah, please, if you see anything that looks dangerous like that, the state of Michigan has a very large plan for taking care of workers, protecting them, and everybody's supposed to follow that plan. So if something looks like it's not in place right, then we need to know about it. So thank you for that.
Okay, thanks.
One other question. As I recall, you know, and I'm not sure if it was utilities or whoever, but on the corner of Michigan Avenue, and all the bricks in the pavement was disrupted and what have you, and just sat there and for a lengthy time, and I almost got to wonder who was going to take responsibility in fixing it and taking care of it. Will they make sure that they do take care of any disruption of the sidewalk, bricking there as well?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to be sure.
Yes.
That's why they're doing it till November.
Maybe so. Okay.
Perhaps it's important for you to know if they have to cut out a ramp for ADA compliance, for example. They offer to let us come in and rebuild the streetscape in the area around the ADA ramp, or or put the ADA ramp in ourselves with streetscape brick, which is very costly and difficult to do. So we've been opting for the standard concrete ADA ramps and then having the streetscape blended into those areas. But in general, they're preserving all of our streetscape as they go through this project.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, it's been moved by Councilman Racy, supported by Councilman Webster, to approve the agreement. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
The next item is item 5, administration reports.
Do we have anything?
We have quite a few from
Okay.
questions from last week, so please bear with me. I just want to add what Mike said. I had a resident come in yesterday, and he was asking me about his road, and I explained to him that it's approximately to completely redo a road, it's about $1 million a mile. $1 million. So let's put that into perspective of what the emergency funds we received from the state were, $117,000. Put that into perspective of what a mill is worth. It used to be double, and now it's $350,000. We don't have enough money to do what we need to do to fix every road, unfortunately. So just remember that $1 million a mile when it comes down to, you know, putting into perspective to explain to someone just how expensive and costly it is. Are you thinking it's more, Mike? Depending on the infrastructure and if there's any more issues, that's approximately.
Perhaps at a later time it might be good to have more discussion about what costs look like for roads and where we sit.
Correct. It's costly. It's very expensive. Okay. All right. So I'm going to just start with Kathy Rockwell had a question about Metro Storage at the last meeting. I'm going to have Lori come up, if that's okay, and address that question on the progress. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening again. Tim Judge, as you know, is the developer and the owner of the land for Metro Storage. He is now the third project in less than 3 months that is experiencing a situation that they are over budget. He is over budget by $1 million in what he initially projected because of the cost of construction materials and labor right now. So what he is doing, he reached out to me not long ago, what he is doing is he is looking at, right now he's like at a 70% loan to value ratio, which there's not much profit in that. He's looking at getting cash investors right now. I actually sent somebody to him today. If he can pay cash for this project, then it may be more worth it as far as moving forward with the development. The other option would be is that he is going to look at coming to Matt with a new site plan with 1 3-story building as opposed to multiple buildings, scaling the project down and then developing it that way. I don't think anything's going to happen this summer. He really wants to develop it as he presented, but being $1 million over budget, it's not feasible at this point. We also have 2 other projects in the city that I've gotten the same report back that they are really, really having some serious issue with construction costs and where they're at with getting projects completed. So hope to hear more from him soon. Like I said, I did connect him with someone today, a potential cash partner. If that happens, then I'm hoping he's able to come back to Matt and sit down and discuss the project. Otherwise, it probably won't be until next spring that he's able to move forward. So that's where we're at with that.
Okay.
But he does intend on getting the project done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item, Mr. Osborne had a question with regards to the property transfer request the last time that you were here. I was able to talk to Katie in the finance department and Jennifer in WCA, Wayne County Assessing. And basically, the request was to see the last 45 days of property transfer affidavit forms. Jennifer, the assessor, stated that as a property transfer affidavit forms are received, they're entered in the computer and then filed by parcel number. They are not, we're not required to keep a stack of unfiled property transfer affidavit forms for 45 days so that the residents can come and inspect them. So it's all, as they come in, they're entered. So basically, where the 45 days, they said that the 45 days referred on the form is how long the resident has to file the form with the assessor. WCA advised the resident that it would take an extensive amount of time and requested that a FOIA be completed because it would take an extensive amount of time because of the fact that we have to enter these and we don't have them just stacked. So basically, when it comes down to it, we would love to provide everyone with anything we possibly can, but we also have a lot of other work that's ahead of that as well. So the staff did advise properly with regards to the FOIA request, just due to the time that it would take to do that work and to perform that work.
Okay.
The next question, I'm going to kind of go back and forth with Rita here, is there was a question about the Parks and Trails Committee and whether elected officials or candidates could serve on these different, and I'm going to have Rita talk about these commissions and committees and answer that question the best that she can.
Sure. I kind of warned you last week with the short turnaround that I wasn't going to be able to put it in writing. So I really kind of broke the question down. It's a two-part analysis. The first analysis is someone running for council required to vacate a seat on a committee or commission? I cannot find anything to say that. That's a very, very conservative approach in my mind that the city is traditionally taking when they're running. However, when they have the seat, that's a different analysis. And that analysis is fact intensive. I have to look at the individual committee, the individual commission, whether or not that organization has, a lot of times they can have organizational documents contained therein that prohibit it. So their organizational documents themselves, absent charter, can prohibit a council person from sitting on that committee or commission. And then there's a separate analysis on whether or not that committee or commission is underneath council with regard to decision-making processes. So when you look at boards where council is the appellate board for a decision made by a committee or commission, it would not be appropriate for council to be the appellate board to a committee or commission and then a council member serve on that committee or commission. Mm-hmm. If council has to approve maybe expenditures or budgets, or there's some sort of conflict that may be related to the fact that council is approving decisions or actions of the board, and in the hierarchy, council is essentially supervising or overseeing the conduct of that board, then that's where we could run into the problem. So the shorter answer is I don't see any issue with someone running. However, once they take a seat, the analysis needs to occur on what committee or commission is it, look at the organizational documents of the committee or commission, see how council supervises that particular committee commission, and then make an analysis at that time or a conclusion with regard to that particular committee or commission.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, yep. And then I think the other question that Lisa had asked me to respond to was Mr. Amos had asked a question regarding our personnel evaluation and the hiring of outside counsel in order to conduct the personnel evaluation. So I think there were three questions that he had. The first question is how much money has been expended to date. The second is whether or not when it's going to conclude. And the third is whether or not the citizens are going to see a report regarding this matter. So currently no monies have been expended to date and no bill for services has been received by the city. The evaluator has submitted an interim bill to my office for review to ensure that it's appropriate and reasonable for and on track with the number of people that have been interviewed and the documents that have been reviewed to date. And then at the completion, that bill will be submitted to the city. In the interim, I have also advised council that if they wanted to see that bill, I would ask him for a very neutral version of that bill that I could provide to council with a written report, and I'd be happy to do so. The assessment itself is anticipated to be completed by the end of July, but that's assuming that the remaining people who have received a request for an interview cooperate in that regard with him in the evaluation process. So there are interviews remaining, and assuming they cooperate, he anticipates that the process would be complete by the end of July, and then he would ask for approximately 1 week to summarize, prepare notes, and things of that nature. So just looking at a council meeting perspective, I would imagine council would have something by the second meeting in August, only because we meet on August 6th, right. A Monday, I believe, because of the election on August 7th.
Yes. Even
though I anticipate his report will be done by the end of that first week, just practically speaking, because of the way that our schedule meets and how we meet only twice a month, I would imagine that timeline would be appropriate. And then the last question was whether or not a report is going to be made public. Mr. Herford is hired by the city attorney's office. Anything that he gives to me is subject to the attorney-client privilege, and as such, I would recommend that it remain confidential. As we all know, in relation to any confidential privileged information by council, council can, by a majority vote, choose to waive that privilege. However, I would strongly advise against it until council had the opportunity to see what it says before they make that kind of decision. So initially, the correspondence would be protected by the attorney-client privilege, and then it would be up to council to decide whether or not they wanted to share that information publicly.
Okay. Thank you.
And then the last question, Mr. Clareman, you had asked for clarification on Cadillac, and the city attorney did answer that, and I believe that there still is a hearing on the 19th, Thursday.
On July 19th, there's what's called a continued pretrial at the court. The 29th District Court is a public place. I had a jury trial yesterday. If anyone wants to come and watch what happens at the court, you're welcome to do so. I would imagine the parties are going to appear in front of the judge, although it's very anticlimactic in that it's really just a setting of dates until an actual trial occurs. But our hope is that the individual who submitted a site plan to the city, which did not appear at the last court date, will appear on the 19th, because he's been the one to date that the city's been dealing with. And then also there are 2 additional individuals who showed up at the last court date who are anticipated to show up on July 19th. And my hope is that they will have some more documents to show me so that we can assess how serious they are about rehabilitating and or demolishing the property. The citation they've been issued is a misdemeanor citation. So in that regard, it is punishable by up to 93 days in jail and or a fine of $500 and or probation for 2 years. So, and that those orders are enforced by the judge. So we chose to take that route because of the fact that the judge can enforce any violations of probation or, you know, orders of the court. And our hope is that they're going to comply in abating the blight, because that's the type of citation they've been issued at this point, is what's called a blight violation.
Okay.
And the last thing I just wanted to say is congratulations to the Wayne Fire Department. They were one of the recipients of over $260,000, and they received a portion, $14,799 for 2 ventilator packages. I want to just push that because Lori has known Mr. Kopiak, who is one of the corporate gentlemen in the corporate offices for Firehouse Subs, so she was very helpful. But every time that you go to a Firehouse Subs in Plymouth or Westland, wherever they may be, when you put money in that tip jar, it goes towards these grants. And this helps our fire department. So when you visit these stores and when you do that, it helps us to apply for these grants and secure funding. So this was really nice that we were able to get $14,000. A lot of the grants are capped around $20,000, so we did pretty good. So out of all the communities, we were one of many that they were able to get some fundings for much needed equipment. So I just wanted to congratulate the fire department on that. And that'll conclude my report because I have no more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Next item.
Are citizens' comments or requests on items not on the agenda? Citizens are to limit their comments or requests to 3 minutes. The City Council asks that if you do have a question or concern, to bring it to the attention of the appropriate departments whenever possible. If you feel that the matter has not been resolved satisfactorily, you are encouraged to bring it to the attention of the city manager, and if still not resolved satisfactorily, to the mayor and the city council. The mayor, the city council, and the department heads may not respond to the questions at the meeting, but will respond by the next city council meeting or as soon as possible once they've looked into the matter.
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name's Vern Amos, and I live on Stellwagen. My first question has to do with the Veterans Memorial in town. I've been asked by a few people in our city that we collected all this fine money and donations from Ford Motor Company, the union, and such. Where is that money and how is it being spent? I understood earlier we did hire an engineering firm to evaluate perhaps saving the center portion, but people are not seeing anything being done, and they're concerned about where the remainder of the money is or how much money's left and if there's anything going to be done. My second question is that if this investigation into a hostile work environment at the city is being conducted, and we're not privileged to information that the rumor mill has it that you spent well over $30,000 already, and that's taxpayers' money. And when taxpayers' money is involved, the taxpayer, I believe, has the right to know how much money is being spent and so on, what it all concerns and what's going on with this investigation. There's just too many rumors going around out there that needs to be squashed, and they're not good rumors, believe me. There's rumors that Chris Sanders is behind it all. He's pushing the agenda through you, the mayor, and I don't like that kind of stuff. It's not right, and you know, people are upset about so-called collusion at the federal level. They got to take a look at what goes on behind closed doors at this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amos. Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, I'm Phil Wagner. I live on Laurenwood. Just want to say I thought Wayne Downtown Days was a success. My family and I enjoyed it. One thing I wanted to ask about, on Wayne Road, we had to cross Wayne Road where there was no crossing guard or no light or anything. Thought that was kind of dangerous. Thing is, the fire department right there has a light, and I was wondering, maybe in the future have someone work that light, put a red once in a while so that pedestrians, especially those of us with little ones, could cross safely. I thought, just an idea.
Thank you. That's one of the reasons they won't allow us to have another crosswalk, is because of that light, which is activated by rescue vehicles coming out of the fire department. That's the only way it's activated. So you need to cross either at Glenwood or at Sims. That's legally where you cross that. Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
Jeff Wild, Newburgh again. So tonight we heard down the road that we're going to have higher water rates, and a solution would be to build more infrastructure. Once again, this is going to take taxpayers' money, and we know that we're going to want new millages, and as we say over and over again, it never stops, and we have to pick and choose our battles. So if we have to build more infrastructure, where's the money coming from? This witch hunt that's going on here at City Hall, the price tag on that would be probably the nice start to a Wayne water tower. So I hope you find something here. If you come back with nothing, okay, that's just a black eye on whoever called for this. Your legacies are at risk here, that you guys are willing to waste money for personal agenda on these witch hunts here. I'm just gonna say, I've had employees in the past, I've worked at places in the past, and people don't get along. It's just how it is, and at the end of the day, people have to be responsible for themselves and how they conduct themselves, and if they fulfill their duties to what's expected of them. So again, if this is 30 grand, that's the first I've heard of 30 grand, but I could see it going that high if it's prolonged. I just say, wow, whoever called for that should be proud of themselves. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Good evening. I'm Larry McConnell. I live on Greenbush Court, and I'm here just to remind people to vote on the 7th. There are a number of candidates up. This is really the time to make a decision about who you vote for in the primary. And part of the election is also a millage for the Wayne Library, and I'm a member of that committee. And our priorities are many. For instance, fixing the roof of the building. The building's a gem. It's been, award-winning design, and we need to keep it the way it is. And to do that, we need to fix the roof. part of the issue, if the millage passes, will go from 31 hours of operating time to over 50. Residents will receive the following services, including a budget for books, CDs, DVDs, audiobooks, and technology for users. Story times and other programs will be added or restored. And just for everybody's information, the money generated by the millage is designated for the library. None of this would go to the city. It's a separate budget. The city would collect the taxes and immediately put it into the library budget. So again, just a reminder about the election. One more point. It'll cost the average homeowner $2.83 a month for the 1 mil that goes to the library. And that's on an average cost of a home in the city of Wayne. So again, reminder, vote on the 7th. The millage for the library is part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
You're speaking about the safety of pedestrians on Wayne Road. After distracted driving and drunk driving, the main issue with that is inadequate lighting or other environmental conditions. Right now we've got 4 light posts that are out. They've been out for a few months now. We know who took them out. It's federal government owned vehicle. I was just curious where we're at and getting some reimbursement for that so we can get those poles put back up and get adequate lighting again.
Okay, we'll have a report next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay. Next item.
Next item is item 6, items for the next agenda.
Any items? Nope. Okay. Next item.
The next item is item 7, consent calendar. There are 4 items before you.
Wish of council.
Receive and file.
Is there
Well, we do need a motion.
motion to accept?
Okay,
to
motion to
approve.
accept.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Racy, supported by Councilman Porter. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next item.
That would be comments from members of the city council.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Porter, Councilman Porter.
Thank you, Mayor. Vern already touched on the Veterans Memorial. I had that down because we were both contacted about that, so if we could get a report on that, please. We attended, wife and I attended Wayne Downtown Days. I think it was really a nice time. I think everybody had a good time. Concert was great afterwards, so hopefully we can build on that. We can make it even better every year. That's all.
Thank you. Councilman Dowd?
I have nothing tonight, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Webster?
I just want to remind everyone that we do have concerts starting tomorrow night, so I hope everyone can make it out. That's it.
Thank you. Councilman Gabriel?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just want to say thank you for excusing me from the last meeting as personal things came up. But other than that, nothing else.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Racy?
Thank you, Mayor. I too want to thank everybody that worked on the Downtown Days to make that happen. It was a lot of work to have that go on. I did get a chance to talk to Sam over at Northside Hardware, and he was telling me that the amount of residents that just were complimentary of what had taken place, and we're talking about the entire city and how great things were this year, and they really noticed a difference of things improving with sidewalk sales, and the Downtown Days is starting to get people's attention that there's something new. That, I mean, the sidewalk sales had fallen to the wayside pretty much over the last few years, probably the last 10 years. It's just kind of been depleting, and it's just kind of given it a breath of fresh air with adding the crews and everything else to it. But definitely a good time. Got a chance to go around the city, and people were having a great time. Talked to some business owners, talked to different residents, and everybody seemed to have a great time. I do want to thank Maxwell from Main Street. He worked his tail off the entire time. I actually got to I helped him a few nights tearing down with some stuff, and he kept the alley open Saturday night till after 10 o'clock, which they planned on closing that at 4. and we're able to keep that going, and we had actually an event with the lights on, which was really nice. And I also want to thank Macon Transit for having the busing system for us. That is improving each time that we've tried it, and we actually had some shuttle bus magnets on it this year, and it seemed like it was starting to pick up, that people are starting to catch on that we had the shuttle system. And I too noticed the issue with trying to get across Wayne Road. I took the shuttle around the first time, then tried to get back to my car, and it was difficult. There was a lot of traffic on Wayne Road, and quite dangerous if you had kids. There's definitely, for that day, to have some issues, I would recommend the shuttle. It is handicap accessible, which people with wheelchairs were able to get onto it, and actually rode with a person in a wheelchair when I was on it on Saturday. Also want to remind people that the concerts are coming. Tomorrow will be Whiskey Fix is the next concert, and the concert after that will be on the 25th will be Square Pegs, then followed by the Beatles on August the 1st, and then August the 8th is Your Generation in concert, and then August 15th is Rockstar, which is a hair band tribute, and the 22nd, which is the Magic Bus Tour, and August 29th, which is Elevation, which is a U2 tribute show that's coming out of Toronto. It's a great time, and I think that's a great opportunity for people to come together and see our community shine over the next 7 weeks that we have left. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Miller?
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to partner up with the comments that were made here this evening regarding the Wayne Downtown Days. I want to thank the Wayne Police Department and Michigan State Police for also being able to help provide a safe and friendly environment for these multiple events that had occurred. I went down there multiple times, different times of day, just to do a lot of observation and checking it out, period. I also want to point out that we're having, I also want to mention a really special thank you to all the volunteers and participants. Because I tell you what, it was hot that day. They were out there. They were out late at night, like Councilman Racy had pointed out. And, you know, that takes a lot of dedication. And we really need to say a special thank you to all of them. Because without them, this would not have been the success that had occurred over the weekend. I also want to point out is that we're always thankful to see new businesses coming in, and we've been long awaited with Platinum Fitness arriving, and they are now open. We are going to have a groundbreaking event on August 8th, and correct me on a time, I believe 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock? At 11 o'clock, so I would encourage the community to come and join in this exciting moment, long awaited exciting moment, project that has now come to fruition here on Michigan Avenue. And also I just wanted to share some personal happiness today. An addition, a fourth family addition to my family was born today. Romy Jean happened to be named after my mother, Rosemary, but Romy for short, and Jean for the mother's grandmother as well. So I just wanted to share that. We're all so excited at home about this new arrival, and looking forward to seeing her this weekend. So with that, I will pass.
Okay, thank you. I too just want to say thank you to everyone. The Downtown Days was a lot of fun. We had the hoods that were painted in Derby's Alley, and that was a really nice new addition to the program. You know, local folks had done it, and it was very well received, and they received quite a bit of compliments on it. A lot of activity there. I worked there 2 days, and it was nice to see all the people coming in there. Then there was the photo contest for Windows of Wayne that was held at Karma Cafe, and that was very nice representation of some of the amateur photographers that we have in the community that submitted photos. And again, I'm sure there will be information of that in the paper coming out. And the other thing is DTE is going to be doing a herbicide treatment in our community this month. And they will be going around, and if they are going to be in your neighborhood, they're going to be putting out some door hangers on your door, which will explain what to expect, what may be taking place. And this is just a way for them to be protecting the lines and stopping vines and such from growing up. So they'll be going through your neighborhoods, and there will be a 10-foot buffer left to sensitive areas such as parks, pastures, landscape areas, and bodies of water. All the chemicals are approved by the EPA, and the strengths are comparable with household chemicals. The chemicals used will be listed on the door hanger and on DTE's herbicides webpage. There will be no spray within 100 feet of an inhabited house if the owner did not give us permission to go on that property. If you need more information, you can go on their website, DTE's website, or there is a phone number to call, 313-806-4586. And this information, I believe, is on, you had put it on the city's Facebook page as well. So if you go there, you'll find information as well. Also, I had received a ad or a flyer from the Detroit Wayne Mental Health Authority yesterday, and they were having community town hall meetings on marijuana and the impact on our community. One was held on the 16th, one was held today, and there is one again tomorrow from 9 until 12 p.m. at the Wayne County Community College Downriver campus, if anyone is interested in that. And with that, a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Porter, supported by Councilman Racy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.